We stand today at the apex of a journey that has fundamentally reshaped the human experience. This presentation, grounded in the interdisciplinary inquiry of Vaclav Smil, explores the 5 grand transitions that have constructed our modern world: population, agriculture, energy, economies, and environments. As we gaze upon the stark contrast between the agrarian subsistence of our ancestors and the electrified complexity of the modern megalopolis, we must recognize that this was not a simple linear progression. It is a story of how we moved from precarious survival to what we now consider quotidian realities that are far beyond the imaginations of those who tilled the soil centuries ago. However, this journey is defined not just by its accomplishments, but by its limits, detours, and the intricate, often invisible web of interactions that bind these 5 transformations together. How did we arrive at this specific point in human evolution? The visual evidence of our success is undeniable: shelves stocked with global produce, the routine miracle of commercial aviation, and the digital interconnectivity of the smartphone. Yet, these images conceal a deep dichotomy. While our daily realities have transcended our ancestors' wildest dreams, these benefits have yet to reach billions of people in less privileged societies. Furthermore, the very advances depicted here, the metabolic throughput of our civilization, now imperil the integrity of the biosphere itself. To understand our present, we cannot simply catalog these inventions. We must understand the arduous, resource-intensive journey that enabled them. We must examine the detours and cul-de-sacs of history to understand why our unprecedented prosperity is coupled with unprecedented existential risk. Our inquiry is structured around 5 specific, interacting pillars. First, the demographic transition, the shift from high mortality and fertility to the stabilizing patterns of the modern world. Second, the agricultural transition, transforming from subsistence farming to industrial food systems of immense abundance. Third, the energy transition, the move from biomass to fossil fuels and our current faltering struggle toward renewables. Fourth, economic transitions, the structural change from agrarian life to industrial and service-based complexities. And finally, the environmental transition, the history of our cumulative, often degradative impact on the biosphere. These are not isolated silos. They are the enabling and multiplying factors of one another. As we proceed, remember that none of these exists in a vacuum. Changes in energy dictate agricultural outputs, which in turn drive demographic shifts. You will notice a distinct density of data in this analysis. This is intentional. As Smil argues, the processes and transformations we examine cannot be properly understood without relentless quantification. In the absence of hard data, we are left with vague impressions. We cannot grasp how far we have advanced, nor can we comprehend the sheer magnitude of what remains to be done. For instance, understanding the challenge of shifting our civilization's energy base requires more than optimism. It requires measuring the exact energy density of fossil fuels versus renewables. This book and this presentation engage with numbers, not to obfuscate, but to clarify. We eschew general descriptive historical accounts in favor of analyzing specific demographic, nutritional, and energetic variables. It is an unapologetically empirical approach. In an era obsessed with forecasting, some might expect us to present a unified model of these interactions. We consciously refuse to do so. We maintain a lifelong skepticism regarding the utility of such models for 2 critical reasons. First, they are almost always built on an incomplete grasp of constituent variables. Second, they fail to account for the constantly evolving interactions between those variables. Consider Oded Galor's unified growth theory. While it offers a framework for economic transition, it contains no explicit recognition of the roles of energy or the environment. It is impossible to understand the modern world without attending to the biosphere and the laws of thermodynamics. Therefore, we view universal models not as reflections of reality, but as exercises to be critically deconstructed. Why not use graphic models to illustrate this web of interdependencies? The image before you illustrates the problem. If a flowchart were to be reasonably realistic, avoiding the status of a gross caricature, it would look like this: confusingly interwoven. A clean diagram cannot convey the true nature of feedback loops in human history. We are dealing with counteracting forces, sequential effects that change over time, and critically, qualitative changes that are often delayed by decades. A simple arrow from cause to effect misses the reality of, quote, backsliding, or the way a solution in one decade becomes the problem in the next. To reduce these grand transitions to a neat graphic depiction is to mislead rather than to reveal. We must embrace the messiness of the empiricism. Consider the demographic transition. When we try to pinpoint why populations shift from high to low fertility, the causality becomes a blur. Was this transition an adjustment to changing socioeconomic circumstances, such as falling infant mortality and rising incomes? Or was it an innovation process driven by the diffusion of birth control methods? The answer is that these paths are not mutually exclusive. The interactions are shaped by country-specific cultural factors and socioeconomic contexts. It is impossible to offer an absolute ranking of causes or a neat graphic depiction that applies universally. All suggested triggers have merit, but their explanatory power varies by region and era. This proves that even our most fundamental human shifts resist simple algorithmic explanation. Similarly, the narrative of the Industrial Revolution is often presented as a clear story of steam and progress. In reality, historians agree on neither its causes nor its timing. Why was Britain the first to take off? Was the primary trigger a new energy source, coal, scientific knowledge, or new economic arrangements? Was it truly a rapid revolution, or was it a gradual process of modernization stretching over centuries? The persistent questions surrounding this pivotal moment illustrate the limits of our understanding. The inherent challenge of answering these inquiries suggests that there is no generic model for economic acceleration. We must look at the specific convergence of science, energy, and economics without forcing them into a predestined narrative. The full import of these transitions is often revealed only after they have run their course, creating unforeseeable realities. Let us examine the interaction between the late-stage demographic transition and the food transition. A simple mechanistic view would predict that smaller families would lead to lower food consumption and a smaller environmental footprint. But that is exactly what has not happened. Instead, we observe a counterintuitive phenomenon. Decreasing family size correlates with a decline in home cooking and a sharp rise in convenience foods and dining out. The social shift has altered the material reality. We have traded the efficiency of the family pot for the energy-intensive convenience of the single-serving meal, fundamentally changing the structure of the global food system. Let us trace this feedback loop with the rigorous quantification the topic demands. The rise in convenience food drives demand for meat. Meat production is energy-intensive, requiring massive grain cultivation, which in turn demands nitrogenous fertilizers. The processing chain, slaughter, cooling, storage, transport, turns meat into a massive consumer of electricity. This spurred a demand for refrigeration. Historically, this relied on chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, which decimated the ozone layer. While we ban CFCs, the feedback loop continues to twist. Recent investigations found illegal CFC usage in China for polyurethane foam insulation. Thus, a demographic shift in family size ripples through the energy sector, impacts atmospheric chemistry, and creates new regulatory challenges. This web of interactions, boosts, suppressions, and reversals defies simple measurement. We must disabuse ourselves of the notion that our progress is inevitable. There is nothing predestined about the trajectory of our species. Claims that we are becoming Homo Deus or approaching a technological singularity are unrealistic fantasies that ignore our vulnerability. Our journey has been contingent, circumscribed by natural imperatives and catastrophic close calls. From the volcanic mega-eruption of Toba 73,000 years ago to the accidental thermonuclear exchange scenarios of the Cold War, we have survived by thin margins. Even recently, the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic demonstrated how a viral agent could engulf our globalized civilization in weeks. Our history is not a linear march to glory. It is a series of fortunate survivals amidst chaos. We have been a remarkably inventive species. We have managed to reduce the risks of infectious disease and solved complex engineering problems like aviation safety. We have even managed local forms of pollution through technical fixes. However, our success has birthed challenges that have no easy solution. We now face the depletion of ancient aquifers and a widespread loss of biodiversity, processes that are not easily reversed. Most critically, global warming is the ultimate environmental challenge, arising from the combination of all 5 grand transitions. Unlike local smog, this cannot be fixed with a filter. It requires a total reconstruction of the energetic and economic foundations of civilization. We have created a test for which our previous answers are no longer valid. The complex interactions of these transitions define our future, and because of this complexity, that future is fundamentally opaque. It is now almost certain that we will not limit warming to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius, the threshold for tolerable impacts. The inertia of our energy and agricultural systems is simply too great. Consequently, no model constructed today can tell us with certainty where we will be in 2050 or 2100. Despite mastering the atom and the gene, we still face fundamental existential uncertainty. We are attempting to change the energetic basis of civilization while simultaneously increasing global prosperity, a feat never before attempted. We are walking into the fog, and our compasses, our models, are unreliable. This inquiry offers no simple keys to unlock the past, nor does it offer abstract models to predict the future. It refuses to provide the easy rewards of a tidy explanation. Instead, what is offered is an interdisciplinary synthesis of complex histories and a careful, empirical recounting of our path to the present. We offer an appreciation for complexity, contingency, and interconnectedness. If you are looking for a forecast that cites global totals to the third decimal point, or a theory that claims markets will solve all ecological constraints, you will be disappointed. But if you seek to understand the structural realities of our world as they actually exist, this approach is essential. Ultimately, the purpose of this work is to bring together findings from spheres of research that rarely speak to one another. Agriculture, demography, energy, economics, and ecology must be understood as a single breathing system. This approach is the only way to understand our past accomplishments without hubris, and to appreciate the true scale of our coming challenges without delusion. We refuse the comfort of a tidy explanation, because the world is not tidy. It is a complex, contingent, and messy reality. But it is only by facing this reality with a sober, quantitative perspective that we can hope to navigate the uncertain century ahead.